Hello, greetings, Fire Lotus here. So today's video is something that I touched on in the last episode of my podcast, Fire Lotus the Witch, where I interviewed a traditional witch, Brian. And in that conversation, he actually asked me about crossroads. Now, before I go into this, crossroads and what I consider and how I incorporate them into mine, it's part of my belief, it's part of my practice. There are multiple hundreds of thousands of different ways of doing them. You know me. Y'all know me. I just shared my advice. So, where I currently live, let's just say there are a lot of crossroads. A lot. Actually, 7. From my mailbox all the way to my house, there are exactly 7 to 8 crossroads. Some people also know that I have agoraphobia. That and where I live, you don't randomly go wandering in the middle of the night with candles and witchy shit and pop up on a crossroad. It can be extremely dangerous. And just disclaimer in general, if you go wandering through the woods at night, depending on where you're living, please make sure you have some type of protection. Animals, crazy people. Anyways, so now during my lives on my Facebook page, I had been talking about different ways of being able to tap into magic using just objects. Hold on, I'm about to explain. About 2 years ago, I believe it's been now, our property got hit with a really, really bad storm. And I'd actually made a video on this as well. And an idea that my partner had given me. When a storm hits, say it rips off a tree, right? Or lightning strikes a tree. That kinetic energy of that natural blast of energy is connected and stored in that wood, right? Well, if you know how to work with energy, theoretically, this goes into magic theory, which I love talking about, you can actually tap into that place or tap into that location. So, through this and it evolving, I went around one day and respectively collected dirt from 7 of the crossroads at my house. Now you're probably asking me, okay, now you have a jar of crossroad dirt. What the hell are you going to do with it? You tap into the energy. You're like, wait, what? It's like biolocation. In other words, I would put this down, and I have more, but I would put this down in whatever shape. I have my own way of doing it. And then I would concentrate on each individual crossroads and tap into the energetic magic there. So it's basically being able to tap into magic when you're not even there, but bringing the sacred space into your own sacred space. Now, of course, when doing this, you're going to research before you even attempt to gather crossroad dirt. You need to make sure you have the right amount of protections, and you need to make sure you know how to read energy. That way you don't actually bring home a hitchhiker. You're not going to want one of those. So, with that, if you've ever wanted to practice at a crossroad, and you're used to that energy, but either A, one's not close enough, B, you can't get to it, or C, possibly somebody could call the cops on you, collect that dirt in a ritual or ceremonial way that you do. Be respectful of the land spirits. If you go there and you start to ask, can I get some of that dirt? If you have a gut feeling of saying no, you need to get back in your car or keep strolling and just go somewhere else. Now, a lot of people, thanks to TikTok, take it as in when you ask these spirits something, they're going to physically manifest in front of you and start talking to you. That's not how it works. In my practice, when I ask either the land spirits or even my ancestors if I should do this, if I should take this, if I get a gut feeling that says no, then I don't do it. If I don't get that feeling or an uncomfortable feeling, then that's my go-to of saying, okay, good. Also, always leave an offering, tobacco, spirit. If you're 21, spirits, you can use coffee. It just depends on your bioregalism. Research that, by the way, if you have it. That will change your craft completely. But these are things that people are not really talking about, or I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, is the actual energy work in magic. Lighting a candle, throwing herbs on it, throwing oils on it, and carving sigils into it, if that's all you're doing, that's not technically magic. I know people disagree with me, but I'm sorry, it's not. Now, every single time you add something to that candle and you've activated your sigil, and you're twisting and being an alchemist of matching all of those energies together to create something entirely new, that's magic. That's true magic. You can do this, though, with this right here. Now, on top of that, imagine if we were not going through currently what we're going through now in the world, and you could travel. Imagine going to all these historical sacred places, collecting a small amount of dirt, And then also combining that magic fucking dirt. And then there was also a story that I've been told that an old one of the old people that, not old, but somebody that we used to live with, one of their friends from Ireland came over here, and they were driving through the Appalachians, and she actually stopped because she's like, "No, stop! I hear my song of my land," and everybody in the car is like, "What the fuck is she talking about?" She went out and she touched one of the cliff sides, and she actually realized that the spirits and the song of her land from Ireland is also here. Now you're probably asking, how the hell is that possible? You have to think about the I cannot think of the word, but basically how our world looked thousands of years ago when Pangea, basically all of our mountain regions in some point, shape, or form, all of our land had always been connected to it, which means spirits. And I know with me, when I tried to research Celtic magic, or I'm sorry, Irish magic, um, I felt discerned because I was like, well, wait, most of this is on their actual locations, and I'm halfway. I'm in America. How am I supposed to do this? You can practice those types of magics too because all the land is connected. But my craft in general has made a huge shift. I no longer consider myself pagan. There's nothing wrong with being a pagan. I'm saying I don't consider myself pagan. I'm just a witch, if anything, a spiritual witch. And actually, since reading more and researching more on traditional witchcraft, the Crooked Path, the book that I'm currently I'm actually reading the Crooked Path, and I'm also just started New World Witchery. I'm actually realizing that that's what I've always been drawn to. Now, this entire shift with my craft actually started when I read Backwoods Witchcraft, American Folklore, and Hoodoo, and Appalachian Magic. That's when it all kind of like, holy shit, most of these things that I'm reading in this book, I grew up being told. So it was a way that I could identify with something that I grew up with. Now, I didn't grow up in the Appalachians, but where I grew up in Alabama and where I was born, a lot of my family members are from Georgia and from some of the mountains. So old wives' tale, what we would consider folklore, and it's completely changed my craft. On top of that, I no longer really work. I have two deities that I work with. Other than that, I work with my spirit guides and my ancestors. Now, with that, a lot of people, when they hear ancestor work, due to all the political stuff that's being thrown around right now, they get discouraged because of, colonization and, healing and all of that stuff. But you don't necessarily have to work with your OG ancestors, is what I call them. Work with the ancestors that are actually in your life, that you have actually physically met, that have passed away, or two generations down. You don't necessarily have to just jump off the deepest part and just go all the way down. Start from the beginning. And no matter what anybody tells you, some of these paths and stuff like that that people are arguing that are closed, if you actually do research, they're not closed. Some of them are, but others aren't. And that's one of the reasons that I have to watch what I say, because I do have parts of hoodoo in my practice. Not traditional hoodoo. I would call it Creole hoodoo. Again, I'm trying to say it so where I don't get a bunch of people in my comments saying, no, cultural appropriating. So just think about that. Especially if you use TikTok. If you hear something, log off the app and go do your own individual research. You have YouTube videos, you have articles. Don't use Google. Do not use Google. Use DuckDuckGo, use Bing, use alternative search engines, because with Google, you're going to get a bunch of bullshit. Unless you go into, deep dive in different pages, like your 10th page on the Google. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this, and it could be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, and you're not going to want to bring a hitchhiker back. But this right here can definitely change your craft. It's just an idea. I've actually worked with it multiple times, and it does work. So yeah, I also wanted to say, I know all my YouTube videos don't look like everybody else's. I'm working with what I got. I am going to be working on some book reviews. I've got like 10 books that I'm currently trying to read. And with those, of course, I'm trying to wait until I get multiple books. That way I can just do one long kind of video on some of the reviews. And then on top of that, most of the books that I have, I in some way, shape, or form share that knowledge, whether it's on my Facebook page, Fire Lotus the Witch, or in a TikTok video, Fire Lotus the Witch, or on my podcast, Fire Lotus the Witch. Basically, on any platform, you can find me with Fire Lotus the Witch or Fire Lotus the Witch podcast. That's only on Instagram, though. You can find all of that in the link tree that will be in this description. In that link tree, some of the links don't work to like my Facebook page for some reason. I've got to figure that one out. But like I said, any social media, Fire Lotus the Witch, Applecast, Spotify, Anchor, and I believe most other pod platforms for podcasts. You can find me, Fire Lotus the Witch. I do have multiple interviews coming up very soon for that podcast, all of them being practitioners of different paths. They've been doing their own thing for different amounts of years. Some are seasoned, all of that. A lot of things are coming. I do have something very special with another YouTuber, which I'll be advertising a little bit closer. So yeah, that's kind of what's been going on. I'm trying to build up and getting back on YouTube now that I have a better phone that I can actually make videos. I have so many ideas, it's just finding the time to get them out of my head and on that, while at the same time keeping up with everything that I do. Now, I also wanted to say, because I don't actually talk about this that much, I do offer custom spell works and custom oracle readings. I'm an intuitive oracle reader, so if you're ever interested about that, hit me up on one of my social medias. My inbox is always open, or you can email me at firelotusthewitch@gmail.com. That's a newer email, but I have it set up specifically for that. I believe in the witch's payment. Some people are calling it the witch's trade, but I've always known it for the witch's payment. So yeah, that's kind of what's been going on. I do have an actual backdrop that I'll be using, but I've got to work on the lighting in the room that I'm setting up for my craft room / studio. But yeah, for right now, I'm doing it in front of my window. Natural light. It's the best light. But yeah, that's kind of what's been going on, and I also thought that would be a really, really cool kind of witchy tip to do. If y'all want me to do any other videos, let me know, drop it in the comments below. I can go over what bioregalism is. I can go over some of the books that I've already read that I haven't done reviews on if y'all would like. I'm slowly going to start uploading some of my TikTok, because I actually have 2 TikToks. I have my main TikTok, and then I have one that I just created not too long ago to where I'm only doing like spells and rituals and witchy tips. So if y'all would like to see some of that, let me know, and I'll post it on here. That's going to be a little tricky because I got to fix my laptop, but yeah, I'll figure it out. You know me. But yeah, until then, just know that, y'all are all magical. If you see this video, you're loved, you're needed, no matter what your brain tells you sometimes. And don't let another practitioner, no matter how many followers they have, no matter how seasoned they are, if something works in your craft, by all means, keep doing it. If you get a calling from a certain deity or possibly a certain path, do as much research as you possibly can. My definition of culture appropriating is not doing the respectful amount of research, taking something from another culture and stereotyping it. But as we know in modern times, that has just been struded to every freaking thing. But yeah, like I said, do as much research as possible. I know it sucks, it's boring, but unlike it was when I was growing up, there are way more books out there, there are way more websites out there, hundreds of YouTube videos, hundreds of podcasts. So easy. It's easy to do research nowadays than versus back in the 90s or early 2000s. Trust me on that. Most books that you would be able to get your hands on when I first started this were Wicca. Nothing wrong with Wicca. Nothing at all. Saying in general. And now we're starting to actually get a huge amount of books being released on different types of Appalachian folk magic in general, traditional witchcraft. So, broaden your areas. And when it comes to researching on herbs and their correspondences, check out what herbs you can use in hoodoo or what they use them for. I'm not saying start practicing hoodoo, but I'm saying take what they use them for and their correspondences and then transfer that into your magic. Magic is limitless as long as you respect it. And I've said this before, and people will disagree. If a closed practice is 100% closed, you're not really going to be able to find that much evidence out there. I'm sorry. That's how it is. And another thing, slightly controversial, there are 2 different types of voodoo. There's traditional voodoo, and there's Creole voodoo, aka voodoo that kind of stems out of Louisiana and the states around there. That is an open practice. Hoodoo here in the United States, not traditional hoodoo, but hoodoo, some people call it Southern hoodoo, I'm going to start calling it that, I guess. That's not closed either. That's open. And if you actually research the way that those paths were created, you would know that all the people and all the cultures that came together to share their knowledge did it willingly, openly, and knowing that it would be transformed for everybody to use. And yes, it is true. There are some paths to where it's closed, as in you do have to be initiated into it by somebody who is also initiated into it. Um, and I talked about that before. I don't like talking about it because I'm not on here to tell you what's right, tell you what's wrong. I'm on here to teach, help as many people as I can, and basically just show you and tell you what works in my craft, and hopefully you can take that and make it your own to make it do your craft. That's how I've been doing mine. Always, when it comes to anything to do with your spiritual or witchcraft path or practitioner path, if you get a gut feeling of saying no, don't do this, don't do it. If you don't get a gut feeling of saying no, don't do this, or a bad feeling whatsoever, I normally take that as a sign that it's okay. Now, have I had signs working with my ancestors where my ancestors were like, nope, you on your own with this? 100,000%. I am Southern, by the way, and we all know how Southern ancestors can be. So, but yeah, that's that. I am going to start posting more. Until then, like I said, if y'all have any questions, if y'all want me to do any videos on anything, drop it in the comments below. You can click my link tree. That'll take you to most of my things. Some of the links are broke, but any social media platforms you use, Fire Lotus the Witch. If you do use Facebook, look me up on there. I have a page where I go live Monday through Thursday. And in there, it's either free-flowing, depending on where the comments are, or I'll actually have a discussion set up and ready. I've actually been posting some of those lives here because I do know a lot of people do not use Facebook. I know a lot of people don't use TikToks. I know a lot of people don't use Instagram, which is why I'm trying to do it all. I got 2 Instagrams, Facebook, YouTube, 2 TikToks, and a podcast. So, multiple ways of hearing my information. But, yeah, I'm not claiming I'm an expert, but I've been doing it for 18 years, and it's been working for me. So, yeah. I'm actually going to go now. Like I said, click the link in the description. That'll take you to everything else. If the links don't work, just type in my name. If y'all have any questions or anything like that, the email that I offered, my inbox is always open, and drop some comments. Let me know what you want to see on my page. Until then, peace, and I hope you're all having an amazing day.